Okay, so check this out. Chuckster, Sir Charles, The Round Mound of Rebound, Bread Truck, Love Boat, Food World, The Crisco Kid, The Wide Load from Leeds, Ton of Fun, and The Good Time Blimp. If you have that many nicknames, you have to be good at basketball. What's up guys, welcome back to WearTesters.com official YouTube channel. My name is Evan, and today we're going over Charles Barkley's sneaker history. Okay, so everyone knows that Charles Barkley on a good day was 6'6", but that didn't stop him from being one of the most dominant rebounders in the history of the NBA and one of its biggest stars during the 90s. Barkley was built like a cannonball, and he was a perfect mix of power and finesse. Charles played his college ball at Auburn, which is a college that is more well known for its football program. During his time there, he became one of the most popular players in the nation due to his brutal style of play. His popularity was due in part to how chubby he was at this point in his career. Despite his extra poundage, he was still able to pull down rebounds at an incredible rate and physically dominate anyone on the court. During his time in Auburn, Barkley played in Conference All-Star Pros, which honestly made his style of play all the more impressive. He would average 14.1 points per game, 9.6 rebounds, and 1.6 assists over 3 years.
But ain't no one player can guard me, and y'all can write that down.
In 1984, he was named the SEC Player of the Year, and at that point, he was ready to make the jump to the NBA. Barkley was drafted 5th overall by the Philadelphia 76ers in the 1984 NBA draft. This was the same draft class as Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, and John Stockton. The 84-85 Sixers had a stacked roster, and they were considered to be one of the best teams in the NBA. Charles would have to compete for playing time against Dr. J, Moses Malone, and Bobby Jones. Barkley famously showed up to training camp fat and out of shape.
Shut the hell up.
And would struggle to get playing time early in the season. It would be Moses Malone who would take Barkley under his wing and would show him what it would take to be a superstar in the NBA. Once Barkley was in shape, he would turn in a pretty impressive rookie year, with averages of 14 points per game, 8.9 rebounds, and 1.9 assists. During that rookie season, Barkley would rock several Nike Air Force models, both in high cuts and in mid cuts. As we all know, they have almost no cushion, but they have some of the best traction of all time. The Sixers made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they would ultimately lose to the Boston Celtics. During his second year, Barkley would establish himself as a force to be reckoned with. He would end up averaging 20 points per game, 13.8 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals that season. And he would be named to the All-NBA second team. That second season, Barkley would stick with that year's version of the Nike Air Force, and the Sixers made it to the Eastern Conference semifinals where they fell to the Milwaukee Bucks in 7 games. Barkley's third season would be his breakout season as a superstar in the NBA and a turning point for the Philadelphia 76ers as a franchise. Moses Malone would be traded away to the Washington Bullets before the season began, and that would be the last season Julius Erving would play in the NBA. With their big man gone and their perennial superstar diminished, Barkley became the Sixers' go-to guy. Barkley bumped his stats up to 23 points per game, 4.9 assists, and a league-leading 14.6 rebounds per game at 6'6". He would be named to that year's All-Star team, the All-NBA second team, and he would end up 6th in the MVP voting for that year. That season, Barkley would play in the Nike Air Force 2. The Nike Air Force 2 would feature full-length encapsulated air and a couple other performance innovations as well. The Nike Air Force 2 was so good at the time that it was one of the most popular shoes amongst NBA players and actually made its way into pop culture as well. Nowadays, the Air Force 2 is considered more of a skating shoe, but it was a very innovative performance basketball shoe back in the day. The Sixers did make it to the playoffs, but they were booted in the first round, and that would be Dr. J's last season in the NBA. That 87-88 Sixers team looked completely different and was built around Charles.
We don't have a lot of plays. Only plays we got is get the ball to me somehow.
Barkley would average just about 30 points per game with 12 rebounds and shot a league-leading 63% from field goal. That year, he was also named co-captain of the Sixers. He was named to the NBA All-Star team. He was named to the All-NBA first team, and he ended up 4th in the MVP voting for the year. Sneaker-wise, Barkley was still all about the Nike Air Force line. This time, he would lace up the Nike Air Alpha Force 1. The shoe featured a full-grain leather upper, a polyurethane midsole, and an encapsulated air unit in the heel, and a Velcro strap in the forefoot for additional support. The Nike Alpha Force 1 is also famous for being one of the non-signature Jordan shoes that Michael Jordan actually wore in the NBA. The other shoe would be the Nike Air Flight 1. If you want to hear that story, you can check out our Penny Hardaway sneaker history video. Unfortunately, the Sixers were abysmal that year. If Chuck was going to become a legit MVP contender, he was going to have to start winning some ball games.
We might not be very good at basketball, but we can dance.
From 1989 to 1992, things would remain pretty much the same for the Sixers. Barkley would toil away for 3 more seasons with the Sixers, who were never quite good enough to reach the NBA elite. Charles continued to put up crazy numbers during those years, averaging over 20 points and over 10 rebounds in all 3 seasons. He was named to the All-Star team all 3 years, as well as to the All-NBA first team. But the love affair between the city of Philadelphia and Barkley began to crumble. Philly sports fans are demanding, to say the least, and every year Barkley didn't win a championship, their frustration grew. Barkley's frustration grew as well, and everything came to a head during a game in New Jersey. Barkley would try to spit at a heckling fan and by mistake hit a little girl in the stands. It was clear that Barkley was done with Philly and that Philly was done with Barkley. During those years, Barkley stuck with the Nike Air Force line. He would lace up the Nike Alpha Force 2, the Nike Air Bound, the Nike Air Ultra Force, and the iconic Nike Air Force 180. Now, the Nike Air Force 180 isn't a signature of Barkley's, but it is very closely associated to him. David Robinson would also wear the shoe in a high-top version, and there was a running shoe version made as well. At this point, we can clearly see that Barkley tends to reach for shoes with a tougher build and a little bit more cushion. The 91-92 season would be Barkley's last with the Philadelphia 76ers. He would then be traded to the Phoenix Suns, who were in the midst of putting together a championship-caliber team. But before that, Barkley would bring home his first Olympic gold medal. Barkley would team up with Michael Jordan and practically every other Hall of Fame player from that era during the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona. And even though everyone remembers those games as Michael Jordan's presentation on a global stage, it was actually Charles Barkley who led the team in scoring. He averaged 18 points per game, 4.1 rebounds, and 2.4 assists, all while wearing a sleek red, white, and blue colorway of the Nike Air Force 180. In September of 1992, before joining the Phoenix Suns, another legendary bit of Charles Barkley's sneaker history was made.
Hold on to your butts.
The same studio that created Star Wars produced the legendary Barkley vs. Godzilla commercial. In the commercial, Charles battles the iconic lizard, dunks on him, and does it all in the Nike Air Ballistic Force. The commercial spawned a bunch of spin-off apparel and media, including a comic book. The comic book would later be released alongside the Nike Air Force Max CB and explain in greater detail how the Clash of Titans came to be. Getting back to reality though, Barkley's arrival in Phoenix was not smooth. Barkley decided to haul off and hit Cedric Ceballos just to see how the rest of his teammates would react. But once the team got over that first practice, things started to gel.
Yeah, I told you guys, Sir Charles is not a bad guy.
I'm not a bad guy.
At all.
At all.
The Phoenix Suns already had a very talented roster that featured Kevin Johnson, Tom Chambers, Dan Marley, and the aforementioned Cedric Ceballos. They were a very dangerous and versatile team and would win 62 games that season and finish first in the NBA. Barkley would end up averaging 25.6 points per game, 12.2 rebounds, and 5.1 assists, with a block and a steal to go along with it. He'd be named to the All-Star team, obviously, and was named league MVP. To cap everything off, Barkley got his first non-signature signature, the Nike Air Force Max. The Nike Air Force Max featured a 4-foot Velcro strap, a visible Max Air unit in the heel, and a funky carved-out 90s style traction pattern. They're not the best encore performers ever, but damn, they're pretty. The one thing Charles didn't win that year is probably the thing he wanted to win the most, and that was an NBA championship. With Barkley at the helm, the Suns made it all the way to the NBA Finals, but unfortunately, Michael Jordan and the Bulls were waiting for them.
God want us to win the World Championship.
I don't know if I go that far, Charles.
Oh, no, I talked to him the other night.
Barkley and the Suns put up a good fight, but ultimately would lose in 6 games. During the 93-94 season, Barkley would be brilliant on the court once again, averaging his usual 20-plus points and 10-plus rebounds. He was named to the All-Star team and to the All-NBA second team, and would even lead the NBA in triple-double. But the Suns weren't able to recuperate the rhythm of the previous year. The Suns would beat the Golden State Warriors in the first round of the playoffs, but then meet the Houston Rockets in the second round. At this time, the Houston Rockets were a powerhouse in the NBA, led by Clyde Drexler and that year's MVP, Hakeem Olajuwon. The Suns would push the Houston Rockets to 7 games, but ultimately would end up losing. One bright spot that season would be that Barkley would get his first signature shoe, the Nike Air Force Max CB. Just a heads up, the naming of Barkley's signature line is really confusing, so bear with me. Now, the Nike Air Force Max CB was a souped-up version of the Nike Air Force Max. The Nike Air Max CB was built like a tank, like a Barkley shoe should be. The shoe is super heavy, and it featured a synthetic nubuck and leather upper, with an adjustable strap to secure the midfoot, and 180 Max Air cushion in the heel for impact protection. The 94-95 season would bring more of the same for Barkley and the Suns. Barkley would have a great individual season, and the Suns would have a disappointing playoff loss, which was unfortunate because this was the last great chance that they had at winning an NBA title, since Michael Jordan and the Bulls would miss those finals. We did get another classic Barkley shoe, the Nike Air Max 2 CB94. The shoe featured a giant 180 Max Air unit in the heel, and a rugged outsole and upper that are well suited for outdoor play. The shoe also featured an interior bootie and a 2-in-1 speed lacing system. From 1995 to 1997, things remained pretty much the same. Chuck played really well, the Suns underperformed, and we got a lot of new posters. Barkley would get 2 more signature shoes with the Phoenix Sun, the Nike Air CB34 and the Nike Air CB34 2. The Nike Air CB34 was another super rugged Charles Barkley shoe. The shoe featured a 180 Air Max unit in the heel, as well as a 4-foot strap. The shoe was actually designed to look like Godzilla's feet, with white arches along the outsole to represent Godzilla's claws. The Nike Air CB34 2 released in 1995, and it's one of the more innovative Charles Barkley shoes. The shoe featured a full-grain leather upper, lockdown elastic strap for the easy pull lacing system. They also featured a full-length Air Max unit, and they're the first Barkley shoes to do so. The Barkley signature line is actually one of my all-time favorite signature lines, and the Nike Air CB34 2 is actually my favorite sneaker within the line. But I've never been able to get my hands on a pair.
But my life is good. Really good.
Before leaving the Phoenix Suns, Barkley would get his hands on one other piece of hardware, his second Olympic gold medal during the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. He would again lead the US national team in scoring and in rebounding, with averages of 12.4 points per game and 6.6 rebounds with 2.4 assists as well. During the competition, Barkley primarily played in his signature shoe, but he would also play in the Nike Air More Up Tempos, which featured a practically identical cushioning setup. Barkley was traded to the Houston Rockets before the start of the 96-97 season. He would play 4 more seasons with the Houston Rockets, 2 of which were pretty decent. That season, he was named to the All-Star team and was still able to average around 19 points and 14 rebounds, but it would be his last All-Star appearance. Ultimately, Charles Barkley would retire as one of the greatest NBA players to never win an NBA title.
I wanted Chuck to win the championship. When he got with Clyde Drexler and Hakeem as a fan, I thought it was awesome.
That wasn't a super team.
But it was a
super
start,
old
though.
team.
Barkley would actually get 3 more signature shoes during his time as a Houston Rocket, and would also play in a bunch of other non-signature shoes as well, including the Jordan 12, the Jordan 14, the Converse All-Star 2000, the Nike Air Pippen 2, the Nike Air Much Up Tempo, and the Nike Air Tuned Force. His first signature shoe with the Houston Rockets would be the Nike Air CB4. The Nike Air CB4 would be one of the most subdued of Charles Barkley shoes. They featured a full-grain leather upper, asymmetrical lacing, and an Air Max unit in the heel. Now the last 2 signature Barkleys are my number 2 and number 3 favorite. The Nike Air Super CB is actually one of the most underrated shoes in all of the Barkley line. They're not one of the more distinctive looking Barkley shoes, but they feature an articulated mesh and leather upper, a fine line midsole with a Max Air unit in the heel, a 4-foot air sole unit, as well as dynamic fit lacing. Now Nike saved the best for last performance-wise within the Barkley line. The Nike Air CB4 2 were low cut and featured full grain leather and nubuck along the upper, as well as a low profile fine line midsole with a 3/4 Max Air unit. The shoe was sleek and understated, and it was the best performing Charles Barkley shoe on court. And Nike seriously should bring these back. During the 1999-2000 season, Barkley would severely injure his knee, and he would have to sit out most of the year.
There's an intelligent man. Uh-oh, Charles is hurt.
Well, guys, I guess sex is definitely out of the question tonight.
After months of rehabbing his knee, Barkley wanted to get on court one last time, to give fans one last shining Barkley moment. It was clear that Barkley would retire at the end of that season. And after months of rehabbing his knee, he wanted to get on the court one last time. He would check into one last game, get one last offensive rebound, and score one last basket.
Richie Norris going to the basket, lays it up, misses. Barkley with a rebound.
And after that, just rolled off into the sunset. After retiring, and similar to what happened with the Penny line and the Pippen line, Nike would release 2 more Barkley shoes, the Nike Barkley Pose-It Max and the Nike Chuck Pose-It. Neither are great on-court performers, but when you're talking about Barkley shoes, you have to mention them. Well, that pretty much does it for our Charles Barkley sneaker history. The Charles Barkley signature line is one of my favorite all-time signature lines, but I want to know what you think in the comments. Also, let me know what other sneaker histories you would like me to cover. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, be good.